What's up, everyone? It's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and I'm going to make a video that you've probably seen well all over the internet for the last couple of days, if not weeks. But I'm taking a slightly different approach at it, if you will. So we all know that over the last 2 or 3 weeks, that Sony has confirmed that PS2 emulation in some form is, aka some type of backwards compatibility, is coming to the PS4. And we've known that since Star Wars Battlefront released a few weeks ago. Mainly because that included a couple of games from like Super Nintendo and PS2 that were found to be running in software emulation, not just a PS4 downloadable version, but an actual software emulation PS2 version, if you will. So, that's been floating around, and then there was the full announcement shortly after that when I think it was Eurogamer contacted them to ask them about it, and they said yes, they're running an emulation. And then there was the actual proper announcement of what they'll call, quote, backwards compatibility PS2 coming to PS4, which happened a few days ago. And I specifically wanted to hold off and wait because we all knew the PlayStation Experience keynote was coming up. I didn't watch the keynote myself, but I kept up with some of the announcements that were made through it. Or at least I kept up with the ones that I actually gave a shit about, which wasn't too many, to be honest. But I wanted to wait until that was over just in case there was any proper announcement or any full-on thing for it. Now, the reason why I wanted to wait was, one, I can understand why they made the announcement like a day or two prior to the PlayStation Experience, because the way they announced it and the details they gave when it was announced on the PlayStation blog, it would have ensued mass boos on stage, if you ask me. And I was hoping more details anyway that would come out, and more better details, if you will, would come during the keynote. But I know you've probably seen this video about this type of video about this topic about 100 times now from all your different favorite YouTubers, and now you're hearing my take on it, which is, it's pretty much it. But how, when you look at everyone else's reaction to it and all, they're all pissed off, which is understandable, and I'm not happy with the current situation on it either. But the main thing I don't understand is, how did you people not see this coming? Now I say you people as in, the rest of the YouTubers. How did they not see this coming? As soon as they announced the whole PlayStation Now thing, I knew that even when Microsoft announced the backwards compatibility after Sony had already released PlayStation Now, as soon as they did the PlayStation Now thing, I was thinking, okay, if PS1 and PS2 and possibly PS3 games, well, PS3 not including in PS Now, but if they ever come to PS4, I was just thinking, like, straight away, it's not going to be free. It's not going to be a proper backwards compatibility service. It's going to be downloads and paying again and extra shit. And even when Microsoft announced the backwards compatibility and the fact that you can just play the digital games straight off the bat, or if you have the discs, you can actually put the disc in, and you can play it off that. Sure, it downloads a digital copy of the game once you put the disc in. But the fact is, you can put the disc in and play it for free. Phil Spencer got it right. He made that dig at PlayStation Now when he announced backwards compatibility. He said, we're not going to make you pay to play games you already own. And now here's Sony doing this. And they announced that you have to pay to download the PS2 games and play them on there. Again, I know I've said it a few times now, but how did they not see this? How did people not see this coming? It was so obvious that this was going to happen let me rephrase that. How did people not see this coming, that this would be the route that Sony would take if they ever did any sort of semblance of backwards compatibility? Now, I haven't checked if these are on the European PlayStation Store, or at least the Irish PlayStation Store, whichever. But I know, based on all the posts and all I've seen last night and the day before, was that these games range from anywhere between $10 and $15. Now, what's also annoying is, right, some of these games are on, well, all of these games are obviously on PS2. A couple of them are on PS3. So even if you put the, PS2 or PS3 discs in, nothing's going to happen. One other thing that's also worth noting is that Sony have confirmed that even if they bring a game what would you call it? If they bring a PS2 game that was on PS3 digital downloads to PS4, you will have to rebuy it. Yeah. So, I mean, that's fucking madness. Now, sure, there's arguments in some ways that this could be a positive thing, but the pros are just nowhere near. Like, the pros are so minuscule that the cons are just completely dwarf it, if you ask me. So, on top of all that, I mean, Sony have been reached out to by multiple people for comment on the whole situation and why they have to repay to play these games they may already own or may already own digitally. And Sony have the fucking lamest excuse ever. And it's fucking awful. It's like, oh, well, we up-rendered them to 1080p. I'm sure everyone watching this video already knows that up-rendering just means upscaling, so it's arguably worthless. I don't know why they're even using that as a selling point. I mean, or not so much as a selling point. I don't know why they're saying that's a hard work effort thing. Absolutely everyone knows that upscaling is so... It's such a minuscule algorithm for the last like 10 years that why is it even an issue that this is supposedly hard work? No, it just stop. That's all I can say. Other than that, they're saying stuff like, you know, PS4 share and stream support and activity feed and all. It's like, okay, kill yourselves. That's Sony. Just please kill yourselves. And then they have one of the stupidest ones I've ever heard: trophy support. Now, I'm not saying it's stupid for having support for trophies, but they're making it out like all these things are a big deal. We all know that all these things are basically built in to the PS4 and that they'd be arguably there anyway. And the fact that they have to be, quote, tried to use as a selling point, unquote, is just absolutely awful. I know a couple of people who have worked on PlayStation 3. Now, I'd arguably... I know, like admittedly, I should say, I only know one person who's ever worked on PS4 development, but people I know that worked on PS3 development, they were making games before the trophy patch or the advent of trophies, and then they patched in trophies at a later date. They said it takes literally 5 minutes to add in trophies once they're all created. They were telling me how you basically just create the trophy. How would you say? I don't know what the way they described it. It was a few years ago at this point, but if I remember right, they were saying that you literally type it out once you come out what the idea is. It's like, okay, kill 100 enemies. So you type it in, kill 100 enemies, and then you just type like it can be a couple or maybe like a dozen lines of code that are just very, very simple in coding terms, from what I understand, because I don't know coding, but these guys tell me that it's ridiculously easy and takes 5 minutes to add a trophy. It's ridiculous. And the fact that Sony are using this as a massive selling point, and it's like, oh, we put all this hard work to use this 1080p upscaling algorithm. You mean the one that's probably been sitting around on every consumer device for the last 10 years? I was like, oh, well, we're putting in trophy support. Trophy support that can be linked into the game in like less than 5 minutes? Really? That's a selling point? All the stuff that's just naturally built into the PS4 that most people probably won't even give a shit about? I mean, who the fuck wants to live... Well, okay, I can understand the whole live streaming thing a bit nowadays, but who gives a crap about the activity feed? I mean, I don't care. Well, I don't know anyone who cares about the whole activity feed thing. The whole streaming to friend... Not streaming, what's it called? What's that share play thing, I think it's called? Yeah, I mean, I don't know anyone who cares about that, especially in games like these. It's just ridiculous. And the fact that the prices on these are just so ridiculous. I'm glad I kept all my old consoles, and I'm glad on all that stuff. I don't care if it takes me a few minutes to set up a new a different older console just to play these games and all that stuff, simply because I don't like supporting shady business practices like this. That's just my opinion on it anyway. And Sony were so far behind in the previous generation, and then once they started pulling ahead in this generation, it's just they completely lost sight of it, and they literally said, okay, we're ahead, let's grab as much fucking money as possible. And it's just a load of bullshit, if you ask me. And I think so. If Sony keep up on this path, which is definitely going to happen. I think they're going to eventually have some serious competition from the Xbox One. That's just my opinion, but you know, what the fuck do I know? But as an actual consumer, and I take a look at what both potential companies are offering me, yeah, I'd be more inclined to be looking at the Microsoft camp if I was in the market for a current generation console and I didn't already have one. I mean, hell, we can put our PS1 and PS2 discs into our PC. We can put those physical discs into our PCs and run them better than any of these crappy software emulations, including the Xbox One emulation, not just the PS3 and PS4 emulation, but the actual Xbox One and the 360 one as well. We can physically put our discs into the PC, run them on emulators, and get vastly superior results than we can get from these. I mean, you look at I think it's called EPSX2 or EPSX-E2, and you have the EPSX-E, which is the PS1 version. You look at those; they run so much. They can run so much smoother. They can have so many graphical improvements. It's ridiculous. Look up a video of the Final Fantasy 12 running on the emulator at 1080p with max settings. It looks ridiculous. Like it looks ridiculously good for a PS2 game, and they're not going to look like that if the Sony renderer and or Sony upscaler, if you will, they're not going to look like that. So the fact that we can put these discs somewhere else, get emulation with a better experience at the end of it, what are you doing, Sony? They're just slacking off and being lazy and just grabbing money absolutely everywhere. But that's just my opinion on it anyway. So let me know what you think about the whole thing. I know there are a couple of pros and a couple of benefits to the system as well, but I still think the negatives and the cons and the way it's all done is worth talking about more, and the fact that I'm just more shocked that people didn't see it coming. So let me know what you think about the whole situation and all that in the comment section below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter, details in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the rest of the videos in my channel.